The radical, fundamental principles of freedom, rational self-interest, and individual rights. This is the Yaron Brook Show.
All right, everybody, welcome to Yaron Brook Show on this Tuesday, January 27th. I hope everybody's having a fantastic week so far. Looking forward to the rest of the week. The news just, doesn't slow down. Things are happening in the world at a rate that is, it seems unprecedented. I don't know if it is, but this administration, it seems like everything's heightened and everything's at a different pace. But, again, I have no way to measure that, actually measure that. Anyway, we'll start with more news out of Minnesota, or basically the idea is, the chaos in Minneapolis it continues. Confrontations between demonstrators and ICE and police continue in Minnesota. Tear gas is being used, pepper spray, all the rest. There's a video out now circulating on Twitter with ICE outside of a preschool and families and little kids, and the beauty of the modern world that we live in is everything is now documented on video. It's very difficult to get anything done without a documentation of video, not from one angle but from multiple angles, so that the world actually knows what's going on. You can't hide it anymore. So really, really powerful, and I think really, really good. We should shine a light on everything government does. There's very little the government does, some intelligence functions, that should be secret. Pretty much everything else should be out in the open. And the fact that now we can all film as government agents engage in our streets is an amazing thing and good. Anyway, the fallout from the shooting of Alex Pitty it continues. There is growing disenchantment, if you will, among Republicans with the way this administration is handling things. The number of calls for Kristi Noem to be fired. There doesn't seem to be any movement in that direction in terms of Trump. Although he did have a lengthy meeting with her, I guess, and Lewandowski yesterday, but no firing has happened yet. However, other moves have happened. It does appear that Bovino, the Border Patrol commander, Gregory Bovino, is going to be leaving Minnesota, along with some of his agents. I reported on that already yesterday, but now it seems to have been confirmed, and that he will be going to California and maybe retiring at some point, but he has clearly been demoted in a significant way. Tom Homan, who the president yesterday announced he was sending to Minneapolis, is already there. He is meeting with officials in Minneapolis. He is supposed to bring some order, some professionalism, some prioritization to the activities of ICE in Minneapolis. We'll see what he gets done. Holman is not a moderate. He's not a weaker in any kind of way. He's a tough guy, and we'll see. We'll see how it goes overall. We will see. As I told you yesterday, Trump has had conversations now with Governor Tim Walz and with the Minneapolis mayor, Jacob Frey. It seems like the White House is trying to reposition itself as cooperating with the authorities in Minnesota, and where there was some agreement will be hatched out where agents leave Minneapolis and the state turns over, although by all accounts it has been turning over in the past, turns over any criminal illegal immigrants to ICE. So, it's everything is still in flux. Nothing has really changed yet, except Bovino is out. And it's unclear if any of the procedures, if any of the emphasis, if any of the focus of ICE will change, not just in Minneapolis, but all over the country. This is not a Minneapolis problem. This is a countrywide problem in terms of the behavior of ICE. It just manifests itself worse in Minneapolis, I think primarily because they ramped up the number of agents there, 3,000 of them. There are not that many illegal aliens, so what can 3,000 guys do in chasing down a relatively small number of illegals? Many of the illegal immigrants in Minneapolis are just staying home. They're not leaving home because they don't want to be so, and they can't go into the homes. So it's just a lot of them are just, they don't have that much to do except harass. So they are harassing, and of course Minneapolis is also a pretty leftist place, so they're getting a lot of opposition, and the demonstrations are more intense than they are elsewhere around the country. Although, to the credit of the people in Minneapolis, they're nowhere near as violent and as aggressive and as, nuts as the people were in California, where they were burning cars and stuff like that, engaging in explicit violence. So in ways that I think in Minneapolis we haven't seen it as bad as California. So we will see. I mean, this is going to be a long 4 years with Trump. We've got another 3 years to go. And it's going to be really interesting to see how it evolves and what happens as these 3 years proceed. Investigation into the shooting itself of Preddy by the Fed seems very limited. There is a demand, and supposedly Trump has agreed to allow Minneapolis authorities to participate in the investigation and for sharing of evidence. It does seem like the ICE agents actually wore body cams, and that DHS is saying it has body cam footage from the agents. And then the question is, are they going to share it? Is there going to be a thorough investigation? Is there going to be an investigation that it goes beyond just the DHS investigating itself? Will it expand beyond that? And again, we will have to see over time how serious they are, how serious Trump is about saying that he wants an investigation. There's no question that at least Trump and some of the people around him have softened the rhetoric as compared to when Good died. And all of them are much softer in their rhetoric than Secretary Noem or Bovino was, who immediately, without any information, immediately blamed the victim, immediately blamed the fact that he was carrying a gun. Trump doubled up on that again today, but they're getting a lot of backlash from conservatives and from MAGA and from gun rights people around that. I mean, we talked about this extensively yesterday. The right has carried guns, powerful guns that could kill a lot of people into demonstrations, often in the last 6 years. And to suddenly, for the president and for others, leaders of Republican leaders to backtrack from that is going to upset a lot of people. A lot of people. Again, some Republicans have come out and criticized the White House. I mean, even Greg Abbott, who is the governor of Texas, right, came out in a radio interview, said that the White House needs to recalibrate its immigration enforcement. Also in Texas, Ted Cruz said that whatever the administration needs to be more measured in describing the killing of Preddy and other incidents. So, in other words, I think everybody's pushing for investigations. Everybody's pushing for not jumping to conclusions. It used to be when a law enforcement officer killed somebody or something bad happened, the first response was, We're not commenting because we're in the midst of an investigation. We'll comment after we figure out what actually happened. That is not what DHS has been doing. They've been commenting before any investigation happens, immediately coming to conclusions, and the conclusions are always in defense of their own agents. That is now being criticized, it seems, by Republicans. The fact that Greg Abbott, the Republican in Texas, who is pretty aligned with MAGA usually, is willing to come out and say that the White House needs to recalibrate is good. And I wouldn't be surprised if in the weeks to come, Kristi Noem is, Secretary Noem is fired, becomes the scapegoat of this. Of course, the one guy responsible for all of this, the person really behind the entire strategy around immigration, and the one person responsible for all the administration's obnoxious immigration behavior and emphasis will not be fired. I can guarantee that, and that is Miller. Miller is there. He is the many respects the right-hand man of Trump. He is basically channeling the ideas of J.D. Vance, or J.D. Vance is channeling Miller. It's hard to tell who's who. But there's no question, right? There's no question that Miller and J.D. Vance are behind this. Again, Trump doesn't care enough. He's not ideological enough. Trump doesn't hate immigrants the way Miller hates immigrants, the way J.D. Vance thinks that hating immigrants is necessary for him to attain power. Trump hates immigrants because, or exhibits that hatred because, hey, that's what his base wants. It's just like the Second Amendment. It's like he's all for the Second Amendment, but he's not really. He's all for it because his base is for it. And then when he has an opportunity to say something opposite, like today he said, yeah, people shouldn't show up in demonstrations with guns. Shouldn't go with guns to demonstrations. And somebody asked him, what about the Second Amendment? And he basically ignored the question. He was not going to answer it because he doesn't care. He really, really, really doesn't care. He's he's just doing what he does out of whim, out of a sense of power, and to appease his base. And he has no ideas other than, we'll get to in a minute, tariffs. Tariffs he loves. That he loves. There's no question about that. Even there, he's willing to compromise because he doesn't want to suffer because of the tariffs that he loves. So he's willing to compromise on them on a regular basis. It's going to be interesting to see exactly how they navigate all this. Again, I do think that we will see Kristi Noem out. I think Trump will find other ways to be obnoxious towards Minneapolis and Minnesota more broadly. For example, they just announced, the Trump administration just announced or warned that it could cut off federal education and health funding to the state of Minnesota over complaints it allows, quote, males to compete in multiple female sports programs and occupy women's intimate facilities. Bathrooms, in other words. Now, this wasn't an issue just a few days ago, but now it's an issue because Minnesota has the upper hand on Trump from a PR perspective. ICE, he's not managed to do what he wanted with ICE, so he needs to find another angle. And look, the thing that differentiates Republicans more than anything else from Democrats that polls well is the trans issue. That's the one issue that Americans are with Republicans unequivocally. So why not go after Minnesota over that? All right, what else do we say about Minnesota? The number of court cases going through the court system right now, and it's the one court case, a judge has ordered the Trump administration to address its motives behind ICE's Minnesota operation. The state of Minnesota is demanding, in the lawsuit, demanding that there be a temporary hold to all ICE operations in the state, and that the true motivation of ICE being in Minneapolis is political. It's because of its antagonism to Welch and because of its left leaning. At a hearing Monday, U.S. District Judge Kathleen Mendez heard arguments on Minnesota's request for temporary restraining order. The hearing, the judge ordered after the hearing that the Trump administration respond to the state's argument about the operation was created to punish Minnesota for its immigration sanctuary laws. Is this punishment? Is this an effort to coerce officials into changing state and local laws? Is it to compel the state to use its resources to share information with federal immigration enforcement? What exactly is the federal government's purpose with ICE? And that's one of the cases in front of the court. Another case which is in front of again the chief judge of the District of Minnesota, a federal judge, Patrick Schultz, who is a conservative, a real conservative. In this case, the judge has written this opinion where he's just pissed off at ICE. He's fed up with ICE's failure to comply with dozens of court orders. Quote, the courts, this is ongoing cases regarding detainees and people they picked up, ICE has arrested. Quote, the court's patience is at an end. The court acknowledges that ordering the head of the federal agency to personally appear is an extraordinary step, but the extent of ICE's violation of court orders is likewise extraordinary, and lesser measures are being tried and failed. So the judges ordered the head of ICE, Todd Leons. I mean, there are all these different heads of, it's hard to tell who runs this place. Anyway, the head of ICE, Todd Leons, to appear personally in court on Friday. And he's threatening with contempt for the agency's repeated violations of court orders. It just shows, and we've seen this as a pattern with ICE going back now months, that ICE broadly has ignored the courts, and the courts are pretty pissed off, pretty upset. And this is a good example. And again, here you can't blame you can't accuse the judge of being some lefty judge. This is a well-known conservative judge in Minnesota. Now, all of this is coming kind of to head over a funding bill that has already passed the House and is supposed to be voted on by the Senate later this week. Indeed, and if it doesn't, there's a real risk of another government shutdown. And it looked like, as of last week, that this would sail through and Democrats would join Republicans in voting for it, and they would choose not to shut down the government. But part of this bill actually involves increasing ICE's budget above and beyond the increases we saw in the big, bad, beautiful bill. I added a B. It's BBBB. Big, bad, beautiful bill. Big, bad, bodacious, beautiful bill. I don't know. We should just add B's to it. Just make it BBBBBBB. Anyway, that bill. This is going to add more money. On top of that, Democrats were going to vote for it. And then what happened in Minnesota with the killing over the weekend has changed the calculus. And now they see a political opportunity to squeeze Republicans. So Democrats are threatening to vote against the funding bill and basically shut down the government. And there's a significant number of Democrats that are united around this. And it looks like Republicans will not have the 60 required votes to get the bill passed. Democrats are coalescing around 5 restrictions on ICE that they want included in the bill for them to vote for it. They include the DHS must cooperate with state probes into any acts of violence by ICE agents, right? Which is huge and would reverse what has been happening so far. The second restriction would be that the Border Patrol, the Customs and Border Patrol, would stay at the border. That is, ICE would be in charge of all rounding people up in deportations. But the Border Patrol will not assist ICE. They will be just at the border. That's absolutely right. Third, that ICE agents get warrants for any arrest that they make. I assume that is of American citizens. That all ICE agents carry IDs and body cams, that body cams will be required. Some agents have body cams, others do not. And that ICE stay away from churches and schools. Those are the restrictions, pretty mild in my opinion, that Democrats want in order to do that. Otherwise, they are threatening to shut the government down. And a shutdown would have widespread effects, delays for the IRS as tax season starts. Now, usually you wouldn't mind that, but this season, tax season, they're expecting a lot of refund checks. And people could get pissed off if they don't get those refund checks. I've been waiting for mine for over a year now. God. Key economic data would be delayed. We've already lived through that. I'm not sure anybody trusts key economic data anymore anyway. But it would have, a shutdown would have almost no effect on ICE or the Border Patrol. They would be viewed as, necessary functions that would continue to be funded. Republicans are going to resist Democrats' demands, five of which I read to you, on ICE and Border Patrol. So it looks like there'll be a showdown in the Senate later this week. Let's see, what else did I want to say about this? This is an example. It's not directly related to ICE, but it's indirectly related. It's directly related to Department of Homeland Security and the extent to which they've been taken over by, at least their social media has been taken over by a bunch of, right-wing MAGA racists. I mean, really, weirdos. And I've shared with you a number of the memes they put out and how kind of weirdly racist, nationalistic, echoing of Nazi propaganda they happen to be. Well, here's an example of this. This supposedly happened, I guess, the last few days. DHS posted a meme with the phrase, "We'll have our home again." We'll have our home again. A phrase from a white supremacist song. I'm reading from a post by Richard Hanania. When asked about it by the New York Times, the spokesman for the administration denied that the phrase was related to the song. She said, there are plenty of references to those words in books and poems. The New York Times reporter pointed out that when you open the post on Instagram, the white supremacist song itself starts playing. So you can't really evade it. You can't deny it. It's that song. It's a white supremacist song. The spokesman denied it, denied that this was true, accused the reporter of spreading a left-wing conspiracy theory, said she's the one responsible for mainstreaming racism, and kind of ignored it. 40 minutes later, 40 minutes after the interview, the meme was taken down. The post on Instagram was taken down. Yeah. I mean, the reality is that these are these young Republicans who hold positions all over government, responsible for social media, memes, things like that. They are the young Republicans that we've seen evidence that they are racist, influenced by Nazism, white supremacists. I mean, the worst of the worst. And, they're running things. And I really believe that some of the older people there don't even know. They don't know that the song is a racist song. They don't know stuff like that. It's happening right under their noses. They don't care. They're not intelligent enough or sophisticated enough or knowledgeable enough to know where these memes come from and what they refer to. And, they're getting blindsided by the fact that these young kids are putting up racist, Nazi-admiring, Nazi-influenced, just horrible memes on the official, X and Instagram pages of the U.S. government. So, yep. That is how nutty, we are currently, the state of how nutty things are, right? All right. What else? What else can I tell you about Minneapolis, Minnesota? We'll wait and see, how things develop and how things change, and whether they leave Minneapolis and whether they ramp it up in some other city. You could see a real ramping up in California. California has been spared, I think, beyond what they did early on in LA. I think primarily because they don't want to piss off the tech guys, the tech bros that are affiliated with the White House. I think that's the motivation to stay away from California. Whether that holds or doesn't hold is hard to tell. ICE is not going away. They're still hiring more and more people. There's been no indication that there's been any change to training or to guidelines or to anything principled. And as long as Stephen Miller is responsible, the Trump's czar for all things immigration, things are going to be bad. All right, let's turn now to Israel and Gaza and what is going on over there. In the meantime, I'll just note that it looks like Michael is single-handedly going to control the entire Super Chat Q&A session. He's already got 10 questions on the board. He's trying to get single-handedly to get us to the targets, and that's amazing. But come on, guys, you should join him. There has to be questions. You must have questions in addition. Maybe Michael doesn't want you to join him. He wants to dominate the Q&A. But join him. Jump in. Thank you, Michael. You're being, as usual, super generous, and thank you. And jump in here with questions. You might be broke, $2. Starbucks coffee, less than Starbucks coffee, $2. You can do something. Sticker questions. Questions are good because that way you shape the show. Anyway, let's turn to Israel. Over the weekend, Israel retrieved the last hostage that was still in Gaza. We're talking about a soldier, Ron Gavili, who had been murdered on October 7th, but whose body was snatched by Hamas monsters and taken into the Gaza Strip. I mean, to serve as a bargaining chip. That's why they wanted the bodies. He was the last live or dead hostage that had not been returned to Israel. And his body had been in the Gaza Strip for 843 days, really since the 7th of October. Gvili himself was a real hero. In October 7th, he found out what was going on. He took his weapon and he went out. He went out to the battlefield to where, where these monsters were slaughtering, killing, raping, torturing Israelis, and fought them and was killed in action, where the Israeli military failed and it took them forever to get to reach. Individual soldiers, individual Israelis took the initiative and went out and fought. Many of them did not make it home. So, this operation to get him back was a complex one and a lengthy one, it started about a month ago when a operator from Islamic Jihad was basically kidnapped by the Israelis out of Gaza. So this is a Shin Bet, the Israeli security forces and special forces, basically identified him, believed that he had knowledge of where this body might be. He was kidnapped out of Gaza. This is in the area still controlled by Hamas, and interrogated by the Israelis. And ultimately, he is the one who revealed where the body probably was. As a consequence, this is in a grave site somewhere near Gaza City. Israeli forces went in there, and they actually screened 150 bodies. 150 bodies were exhumed and checked with dental records until they confirmed the corpse of Sergeant Major Gvili. Now, this is really, the end of a very, very sad chapter in Israeli history. Not just relating to October 7th, but really this is the first time since 2014 that Israel has not had a body or a live hostage in Gaza. So 12 years where Hamas was holding somebody. Israel values the bodies of its fallen. There's a principle in the Israeli military: you never leave a body behind. They were always committed not just bringing home the live hostages, but also bringing home the bodies of the hostages. So this is closure for the IDF in terms of bringing the hostages home, which was one of the main aims of the war in Gaza, was to bring the hostages home. Most of the hostages, almost all of the hostages, at the end of the day, were brought home because of negotiations, not because of the direct actions of the military. Now, arguably, the negotiations were only successful because of the pressure that the military placed on Hamas and the devastating losses Hamas took during the war. But at this point, to this point, the negotiations are what brought the hostages back, and the negotiations seems to be the way Israel is committed to continuing to deal with Hamas and Gaza. At this point, there's no hostages. Israel could, if not for its commitment to Trump, could go in and finish Hamas off. They could literally finish Hamas off. The Hamas has nothing to hold over Israel. The United States is trying to continues to negotiate a deal by which Hamas will disarm. But exactly what Hamas's motivations to do so are unclear. And really, at the end of the day, Hamas will do what its allies, the Qataris and the Turks, wanted to do. Trump is very conciliatory towards both the Turks and the Qataris, and favors them more generally. He has tried to convince the Israelis to let the Turks and the Qatari military forces enter into Gaza and be responsible for security in Gaza. Israel has rejected that, and I hope will continue to reject it. He tried to get Israel to allow the Qataris and the Turks to be in charge of the border crossing between Egypt and the Gaza Strip, what's called the Rafah crossing. Again, Israel has resisted that and rejected that proposal. So a lot is going to depend on whether the Qataris and the Turks, again, Qataris and Turks, friends of the Muslim Brotherhood, Hamas is basically a spin-off from the Muslim Brotherhood, whether they're willing to abandon Hamas, whether they're willing to tell Hamas to disarm, that will basically determine whether Hamas fights this out or whether it actually disarms. At this point, Hamas is trying to negotiate itself a role in the police force of the new Gaza entity. Of course, that would be a catastrophe. That would keep them weapons, would give them a position of power. They want to integrate their forces into this police force. Again, Israel will resist. The Trump administration will try. I mean, there really seems to be an argument to be made that at this point, the Witkoff and to some extent Kushner are basically now agents of the Qatari government and are just presenting the Qatari case and putting pressure on Trump in the name of the Qatari government. We'll talk about that when we get to Iran as well. That is basically the mission right now. But there is a chance that ultimately Hamas will disarm, realizing that it probably does not want Israel to come in and wipe them out. There is a chance that Hamas will decide to fade away for a while and see how things evolve and see if it can resurrect itself in the future. But we will see. There's very little information to suggest one way or the other. The Rafah crossing, the crossing with Egypt, is going to open in the days to come. The crossing will be controlled by Israel, the U.S., and Egypt. Egypt will control its side. Israel will control the Gaza side with American supervisions. And the exact timeline for the reopening is not set yet, but it's supposed to be soon, maybe by the end of the week. And of course, this is other than exits into Israel. This is the only exit Gazans have, and none of them want to go to Israel, and Israel's not accepting them. Of course, Egypt doesn't want them to come in there in mass. Egypt is not going to accept them. This is more about individuals, trade, maybe some people coming back who haven't been to, who were out of Gaza when the war began. It'll be interesting to see what actually happens once the crossing is opened. A lot of aid will flow through this crossing, and we will see. Of course, there are attempts to build an independent Palestinian police force. What that means, what independent means, who will run it, where they're recruiting people from, is all hard to tell. And again, the incentives here are not aligned. Israel does not want the Palestinian Authority involved. It doesn't want Hamas involved. The Americans just want to get it done, and they're willing to have anybody involved that's possible. And of course, they're getting a lot of pressure from the Qataris, from the Egyptians, from the Turks, and from the Saudis. So, things are moving in Gaza slowly, but they are moving. By the way, the passage in Rafah between Egypt and Gaza, Israel refused to open it until the last hostage was returned. That was the deal. That was the agreement that was signed. Now that the last hostage has been returned, they are committed to opening it. And now phase 2 starts, which means disarmament of Hamas, the new political entity starting to run Gaza, and the rebuilding phases start, the beginnings of the rebuilding phases. We will see. We will see. All right. Well, all of this is going on, and more, of course, is going on. Tariffs and trade is never far from Trump's focus. This is the thing he's most, at the end of the day, passionate, excited about. He loves tariffs. It's his favorite word in the English language, according to Trump. What was it? Monday. Yes, Monday, he posted a new post about him being unhappy with South Korea in this case. You remember there was a trade deal between the United States and South Korea. They were going to invest trillions of dollars in America, and they were going to lower tariffs, and all this stuff was going to happen. And the United States was going to increase tariffs on them to 15%. That's the deal. Trump complained yesterday South Korea's legislature is not living up to its deal with the United States. In each of these deals, we have acted swiftly to reduce our tariffs. There's a lie. All the deals involve raising tariffs in line with the transaction agreed to. We, of course, expect our trading partners to do the same. Because the South Koreans are not acting swiftly enough. And remember, this all involves the United States raising tariffs on South Korea to 15%. They were much lower than that, under 5%, before this deal was signed. Because they're not acting fast, because they're not ratifying this agreement, Trump threatens to raise tariffs on South Korea to 25%. 25%. Remember, in recent weeks, Trump has threatened to raise tariffs on Canadian products 100%. He threatened to raise tariffs to 10 and then 25% in European countries that did not agree to his takeover of Greenland. I mean, Trump uses tariffs as his main foreign policy tool and his main tool to distract all of us when something else is going on. I mean, whether it's ICE, whether it's something else, why not shift focus onto the tariffs? Of course, tariffs are not particularly popular for him either. So his ratings when it comes to economics in the polls are pretty bleak right now, pretty bleak. Now, South Korea, said it hasn't received any formal notification or detailed explanation about what the hell Trump is talking about. They're sending their industry minister to come and have a chat with Howard Lutnick, our Commerce Secretary, our pretty dumb Commerce Secretary. And their trade minister is also expected to visit the United States soon to talk to the U.S. trade representative. So, South Korea, this is an important trade relationship for them, and they have no interest in this, going to 25% or whatever it happens to be, or even at 15%. They would much rather have something at much lower rates, and they will continue to negotiate to try to get it. Now, the history of Trump's threats towards various countries, I'm going to raise tariffs on this, I'm going to raise tariffs on that. He had the raising tariffs on anybody who traded with Iran. And it turns out that Trump carries out about 1 in 4 of the threats that he makes. So about 25% of his threats, right? So they've taken, Bloomberg took 49 Trump tariff threats since November 2024, right? And then analyzed them. 26.5% of them were not imposed. 22.4% of them are still under investigation. 20.4% were imposed in full, only one fifth. 16.3 were withdrawn, 8.2 imposed in part, and 6.1 imposed in full, then withdrawn. So you basically get, TACO. This is the whole idea of him being, these threats that are not real, and him changing his mind when the stock market declines. Now, what are the consequences of the withdrawal of the United States of America from trade agreements and basically the stepping away of the United States from free trade agreements with various nations around the world. And generally its anti-trade stance, its isolationist in trade stance, has been that the rest of the world is kind of woken up. And there's been an acceleration of free trade deals among countries that do not include the United States. I mean, you could take this back to the Pacific Rim, the trade agreement for the Pacific Rim, which was going to be, the United States was going to be participating in under Obama, and then Trump basically withdrew the United States from it. Well, there are enough countries out there in the world who see the value in trade, who understand how valuable trade is, and that they are losers when they walk away from low tariff trade. And as a consequence of that, you saw the EU have the deal with South America. Now, I told you that was being delayed by at least a year. But now the EU is saying, no, we're going to implement it in spite of it going to the court because we think the court is going to affirm it anyway. So that's going to go through. We saw trade deals between the UK trying to sign trade deals, the EU trying to sign trade deals. We saw Canada doing trade deals that kind of go around the United States. Now we've got a major trade deal between the European Union and India. The agreement creates a free trade zone and is expected to double EU exports to India by 2032, with both sides set to eliminate or cut tariffs on a majority of what's being shipped. This will benefit the EU significantly, both in terms of exports and imports, and it gives India a competitive edge in terms of exporting labor-intensive products, where it competes with places like Vietnam, Bangladesh, and China. So it's a major deal. It reduces auto tariffs significantly for auto exports from the EU into India. So this is a boost for European automakers and a boost for Indian consumers of automobiles. So a huge deal, beneficial to all parties, as trade deals tend to be, and a reduction in tariffs. And what you're really seeing is the rest of the world is going to see tariffs go down as they trade with one another, and tariffs go up as they trade with the United States. The main loser of all of that is the United States. You are the main loser of that. You get more expensive goods. You pay for the tariffs in more expensive goods, and you pay for the tariffs in a tax. You pay the tariff, which is a tax. You are the loser of all of this. Just to give you a sense again of the details of the India-EU deal, eliminates tariffs on 90% of goods traded between EU and India. Double EU goods exported to India by 2032. Tariffs on cars from EU to India cut from 110% to 10%. Wow. From 110% to 10%. Tariffs on wines from EU to India cut from 150% to 20 to 30%. I'm not sure what what are they trying to protect? Indian wines? What? Go figure why that's not zero. Tariffs on jewelry and textiles from India to the EU cut to 10%. Tariffs on furniture, chemicals, leather, and metals from India to the EU cut to 0%. That's the kind of tariff I like. 0%. Again, this is a deal that took almost 20 years to reach. It's just like the 26 years it took them to reach the deal with South America. But there's an urgency to getting these signed now. There's a real effort as, again, America, the United States, steps away from global trade, that other countries are going to fill the vacuum and refuse to suffer the consequences of just the stupid actions by this administration. Canada, by the way, is Connie is about to visit India, where he will be signing a trade deal with India regarding uranium, energy, minerals, and AI. So lots of countries are going to sign trade deals while America isolates itself with expensive products, but they're all going to be domestically made. Yay! All right. Yeah, well, and another geopolitical consequence, of course, we've talked about this many times, of the United States kind of exiting global trade or making it harder to trade with the United States is the fact that more and more countries are not only turning to India, but they're also turning to arguably the geopolitical, well, not enemy, but challenger to American power, which is China, and a potential enemy of the United States. And just like Canada cut a deal with China, I think you're going to see more and more and more countries cut deals with China as they lose trust in America, as they come to the conclusion that America, at least under Trump, is an unreliable ally and certainly not a good market to trade with when the president of the United States, at his whim, can change tariffs and is inclined to do so on a regular basis. So a huge geopolitical loss as a consequence of this. All right, I talk a little bit about Iran and China, and then we'll call it a day. So official numbers are coming out of Iran in terms of how many people were killed. What was it, 2 weekends ago? And the numbers are staggering, right? We talked about it initially 2,000, and then went to 6, and then 12, and then maybe 20. And this is 2 days, January 8th and 9th. The number right now that people are settling on is 36,500. That's killed. A similar number of wounded. Many of the wounded are blinded. 36,500 demonstrators, civilians, most of them young people, slaughtered by their own government. There are photographs of piles of body bags, warehouses filled with body bags. It's not just in Tehran, it is all over Iran. Imagine shooting your own people, your own countrymen, in just massacring them, not in a firefight, not in a civil war, just massacring them. All of this at the direct order of Ayatollah Khamenei, the supreme leader, and executed by the Islamist Revolutionary Guard Corps, as well as foreign jihadi fighters they brought in primarily from Iraq, that, again, just drove around slaughtering people in order to suppress the demonstrations, and they've succeeded. Life right now in Iran is unbearable. There are, forces of the regime, whether Islamic Revolutionary Guards or these Islamist thugs out there, patrolling the streets, not allowing people really to go anywhere and to do anything, and restricting movement, and really making it impossible for people are even afraid to go to work, afraid to go shopping, and after 6 p.m. the streets are basically empty. Streets are basically empty because of the fear of what the regime will do to them if they're caught outside. Where did I see this? I wanted to share something with you. Let me just find it. Sorry, I just remembered something that I wanted to share with you, and let me find it. There it is. All right. This is from a This is from a listener to Yaron Brook show in Iran. In Iran. He writes, hello, hope you're doing well. I've been a fan and follower of yours for many years, and I've learned a lot from listening to your daily lives and your lectures. I'm messaging you from Iran and just wanted to thank you for your support and time. I've watched your 4 videos uploaded on YouTube channel about the Iranian protests, and they've been insightful as always. Just wanted to say, if you want any information about the things happening in Iran or the reliable source on that matter, I would love to help. It says the internet connection from Iran is almost non-existent. I don't know if I will be able to reconnect to the internet tomorrow or the day after. So replying to you might take a bit of time. So I wrote to him and I asked him, what's life like after all the killings? A VPN's not going to help you because they're cut off. They have no internet access even within. So this is not about a VPN. This is about getting to a Starlink terminal that gets around the official internet provider. So you can't do this with a VPN. A VPN's not going to save you here. So I asked him, what's life like after the killings? He says, everyone is depressed. You cannot find a person who doesn't have a relative or a friend of a friend who is not murdered by the regime. And with more people finding ways to get connected to the internet, the more videos of the massacre are coming out. Everyone is waiting for Trump and Bibi to do something. Just wish they don't let us down. The regime's lobbyists are working tirelessly. Just so Matt Gaetz, the former congressman, did an interview with Elise, who lives in the UK, the guy who is a known terrorist supporter and a tool for the regime. The regime just announced Manoto TV and Iran International as terrorist organizations, but didn't do the same for BBC Persian. If you take a look at how they are covering the protest, you'll find out why. The same goes for the US media. They're talking about the likes of the Trianta Fars, who is another known lobbyist for the regime lobby called NIAC. While in France is calling MEC as an alternative opposition, which are Marxist Islamist literal terrorists. Right. One second, where was it? Literal terrorists who live in communal camps in Albania. It's really frustrating. He says there's no life in Iran. Tehran is a vast city where the restaurants and coffee shops, since we have no other form of entertainment other than eating, were open until 1 a.m. in the morning. Now everyone closes at 6 p.m. The regime's thugs will close the streets with their cars and check people's phones in the middle of the streets. If they find something as little as an opposing Telegram channel or even an opposition tweet, straight to jail. So it's not safe to go outside after 6 p.m. They are postponing the university exams, the PhD national interest exam, and even the reopening of the schools so students cannot get together and protest against them. They've even closed the university dorms for 3 weeks now. Overall, there are no protests happening right now, but the life has not become normal at all. I doubt it'll ever be the same as 2 weeks ago. The people of Iran are waiting for Trump. And he says, please don't use my name because he's worried. He's worried about getting into trouble. Life is horrific over there. Again, everybody knows somebody who was murdered by this regime. When you're talking about tens of thousands of people, that is going to be the reality. That it's like that. Now, in the meantime, the U.S. clearly has now deployed all the resources it needs for an attack on Iran. The aircraft carrier group is in position. As far as I can tell, the anti-aircraft batteries, the airplanes, the aircraft, the refueling aircraft, everything is in position. All it needs now is a word from Trump, and the U.S. could could rain hell on Iran. According to news reports, the United States is weighing precision strikes on high-value Iranian officials and commanders who it deems responsible for the deaths of protesters during the recent brutal crackdown. That's according to Gulf officials. It could happen anytime this week, but the timeline keeps shifting because, Trump might deny that there's negotiations with Iran going on. They are going on. Witkoff and the foreign minister are exchanging messages constantly. And generally, the situation within the Trump administration is chaotic. They're trying to figure out. They're trying to figure out what they want to do. They're trying to figure out how Iran will respond. I think what they're trying to do is figure out a way where Trump can say that he did something without triggering a massive Iranian response. So they'll take out a few IRGC commanders, and they won't take out Khamenei. And, Iran will then launch a few missiles at an American base in Qatar like they did last time, and everybody will be happy. America did something, and it didn't result in the stoppage of oil and the blockage of the Hormuz Straits, and it didn't draw Israel into the war. The Americans will be happy. The Iranian regime will be happy. Witkoff will be ecstatic. The Qataris will be happy. The Turks will be happy. The Egyptians, and nothing will change. That is actually what I think will happen. I don't think the United States is going to engage in the kind of bombing that would facilitate regime change. Now, in the meantime, the Saudis, the UAE, and Qatar have banned the U.S. from using their airspace, although the UAE is supportive of a U.S. operation. I don't know that the United States cares about not being able to use their airspace. If they really want to attack Iran, they can do it without using that space, or they could just ignore those countries and use their airspace anyway, which is what I would do. What are they going to do about it? Absolutely nothing. They'll deny they knew anything about it. At this point, it's just, Trump needs to decide what he wants to do. But again, my expectation is it'll be, the opposite of what Israel has asked. Israel has asked that it be something substantial, something that could lead to the fall of the regime, and something that actually does significant damage to whatever they're still doing on the nuclear front and whatever they are doing in terms of ballistic missiles. And I suspect that will not be done. That it'll be just go after a few key figures at the leadership of Iran and really not touch anything else. So, and I doubt that Trump will give Israel the green light to participate. Even if Israel's attacked, I'm not sure Trump will give them the green light to participate. I wish they ignored Trump and just did it anyway, but that won't happen. All right, keep watching Iran. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. We'll see what the updates are. Finally, something big is happening in China. And I'm frustrated because I have no idea what. I don't think very many people know what. But this latest purge is big. It's the purge of the highest ranking members of the Chinese Communist Party in many, many years. And these are people close to Xi. These are people who have been Xi allies for a very long time. And so is Xi doing the purging? Or is this part of the purge of Xi? Is this somebody else doing the purging? And there are a lot of speculation, a lot of rumors, but nobody knows. Nobody knows. But again, big, major events. Probably a short-term reprieve for Taiwan, because after gutting the entire leadership of the military it's unlikely you invade Taiwan. Very unlikely you invade Taiwan. So I would say the probability right now that in the next few months Taiwan gets invaded is probably the lowest it's been in a long time. But exactly what the outcome of this is, I mean, my hope is, and I don't know if this is a reasonable hope or not, but there's some evidence to suggest this, and I've been talking about this for months now, for over 6 months, and that this purge signifies Xi's weakness. And that indeed, this is part of the process of certain people within the Chinese Communist Party trying to get rid of Xi. And an effort by some to return China to the pre-Xi era, where China was a lot more open, a lot less hostile, and a lot more inclined towards markets and less inclined towards central planning. That would be good for China and will actually be good for the world if that happened. So what I would like to see is Xi fall. But it's very difficult to tell if that's indeed what's happening. But let us hope. Not that hope works, and I'm not going to ask you to pray because that doesn't work either. But it's no question fascinating what's happening. The politics within the Chinese Communist Party are really interesting, and that these are pure power plays. This is all about power. This has nothing to do with corruption. Corruption is always an excuse for power. It also could suggest that the Chinese military, in terms of preparation for a Taiwanese invasion, is a lot less prepared than what the West assumes. We always overestimate the power, efficaciousness of authoritarian militaries. All right, guys, that is the news for today, Tuesday, January 27th. Glad you joined me. Thank you for being here. All right, we're going to go to your super chats. Before we do that, let me remind you that we have targets for these shows. The target is $250 an hour, which is compensate me for the time of producing these shows. That's $250 an hour for the super chat compensation. It actually has to be much higher than that to compensate me for my actual time and that in prep and everything else. And that would include the Patreon. So you can support the show without super chat on Patreon, patreon.com, or on PayPal. Patreon is just a little easier for you. Patreon.com. Put in your Yaron Brook show and just choose a monthly level of support. Whatever that level is greatly appreciated. It could be $2, it could be $1,000, and I would greatly appreciate it. The more, of course, $1,000 ones they are, the easier it is to grow the show, the easier it is to spend time on the show. So please, those of you who can afford it and value the show enough, please consider doing that. But I'm happy with whatever you can afford and whatever you think the show is of value. So please engage on Patreon. Here you can do a sticker. You can do a super chat. Michael has basically done, 10 super chats or something like that. And almost gotten us to our first hour goal. We're still about $17 short, so it would be nice if we made that up. Maybe with a few $5, $2, $1 sticker, we could make up the $17 before we even start the super chat questions. That would be nice. That would be super nice. We've got a lot of people watching, so it shouldn't be that hard to do. I do want to mention our sponsors. Our sponsors for the show, the Ayn Rand Institute, is reminding everybody of a conference in Porto in Portugal in April. It's going to be really fun. It's a beautiful city, lots to see there, and the conference itself is going to be really good. I'm speaking. Tal Tzfani, the CEO of ARI, is speaking. Onkagate and Nikos, we're all going to be there. We'll have a lot of time to just hang out, which will be fun. So please, if you're anywhere in Europe, jump on a Ryanair flight and come to Porto. And if you're not in Europe, if you're in the US or anywhere else, come to Porto. Join us. It'll be fun. It's in April. You can find information about it at aynrand.org/start-here. And you have a discount coupon, 26YBS10. You get a 10% discount on the tuition. If you're under 34, you can apply for scholarship. You can find all the information for that on the website that I gave before, aynrand.org/start-here. Hendershotwealth.com/YBS. Hendershot with 2 T's. Wealth.com/YBS. Hendershot, they have really a fantastic product that can reduce your capital gains tax liability. If you have a large one, if you're about to have a large one, this is something you should plan for in advance. And they will show you how to position it so when you have the liability, when you sell that stock or you sell that company, you can reduce your taxes dramatically. So I encourage you to check it out. You can check it out on their website, hendershotwealth.com/YBS, 2 T's. Or check out the video with the interview with me and Robert Hendershot, on the sponsors playlist on my YouTube channel. The sponsored playlist in the YouTube channel. You'll find the interview there. Check it out. I think you'll enjoy the interview, even if you're not in a position to take advantage of it. Michael Williams runs a website called defendersofcapitalism.com. Defendersofcapitalism.com. Go to the website. Check out the material there. Michael does a phenomenal job in defending capitalism and putting together programs that defend capitalism, particularly for LPR, Leadership Program of the Rockies. I am part of that program, happy to be part of that program. And I'll be back in Leadership Program of the Rockies in May to talk for Defenders of Capitalism, this time about foreign policy and its relationship to capitalism. What's a capitalist foreign policy? How do you do that? Finally, Alex Epstein. Alex Epstein is a leading thinker in the world on issues related to fossil fuel and energy and electricity and climate change and environmentalism. Check out his stuff. He is phenomenal, really exceptional, an amazing communicator about these issues. He will make you a better communicator about them, and he will enhance your knowledge about a crucial field that we're all living with. Whether you get power outages or whether your electricity prices are going up like this, Alex is the guy to explain why that is happening. All right, and finally, a reminder again, stickers. What do you call it? Super chats. We are now $12 short of our super chat goal for the hour. So somebody do $12 or do $3-4 stickers or something like that. All right, let me thank the sticker people. First Principle and Roland, thank you guys. And let's see, and Greg, thank you for the sticker. And Friend Harper, thank you. And whoops, let's see who else we have here. We have Ryan, and we have Alex, and we have Michael and Mike Dial, and we have Ryan and Friend Harper. Yeah, I think we got everybody. Greg Lewis, thank you guys. Really appreciate the support. And more of you could become sticker supporters. Wouldn't take much. Only $7 now. Ooh, we're inching towards it. Can we make it? All right, let's start with Michael. $50. Thank you, Michael. Oh, this is part 2. I have to start with part 1. It's confusing, these part 1, 2s. All right, Linda, thank you for the sticker. Really appreciate it. Michael says, reading some Rand's writings about the mixed economy, she believed it was an even ever-expanding downward pull that would lead to poverty and totalitarianism fairly quickly. But that wasn't the case. The freedom within the mixture seems to be able to outpace the distortions imposed on it by the mixed economy, pressure group warfare. Rand didn't phantom that we can grow faster than they can kill us. Yes, I mean, she could phantom it to some extent. You saw that a little bit in Atlas Shrugged. But yes, I think she died before the explosion in tech. I mean, if you think about how we've outpaced the statists, how the growth has been higher than the pace at which they can kill us, it's really Silicon Valley. And that's really mid-'80s to today. That really is the driving force in America, economically, has been the tech industry. So it's not she, when she died in 1982. So in 1982, it was really at the beginning. You couldn't see it being a big deal. Personal computers were just starting. Nobody could imagine at that point, except maybe Steve Jobs, what that revolution would entail, how it would change life, how it would expand the U.S. economy, how it would allow the U.S. economy to grow as fast as it has grown, in spite of the statism. And that is why killing Silicon Valley, I mean, it's like right now. I mean, what would the economy be doing right now if not for AI and all the investment in AI? So the tech industry is the one that's driven this. The tech industry is the least regulated. It has been, and hopefully will continue to be. And she couldn't have predicted that. And while she lived to see the deregulation of Jimmy Carter and the beginning of Ronald Reagan, I don't think she quite understood its full impact in buying us a few decades of economic growth. So the deregulation plus the tech industry maybe have bought us half a century, maybe longer, of economic growth without the kind of debilitating catastrophe that the statism that has been embraced over the last 100 and something years would otherwise inflict on us. Michael, explicit evil can't sustain itself long in the West. ICE will fizzle out quickly. More subtle forms of evil, like the welfare state, can be sustained, but outright brutishness won't be tolerated. I mean, I think that is true for now. But, every generation or every decade or every couple of decades, that gets eroded just a little bit. Our willingness to accept more brutality increases just a little bit. So over the long run, it's hard to tell where we land up. In the short run, I agree with you. In the longer term, I'm not sure. And you could even think of Miller and J.D. Vance and others, the smarter people in the administration, actually viewing all of that is happening as a test case. How far can we go? Can we go further now than we did before? Look how much further Trump has gone in his second administration than his first. Well, what will a Vance or a second Vance or Miller or a second Miller administration look in the future? So, yeah, I think the short run, you're right. Long term, I don't think so. I'm worried. Ryan says, a bunch of scientists have moved to the Doomsday Clock closer to midnight than ever before. And now that the climate crisis is broadly debunked, shouldn't the clock be improving? Are they just a bunch of nihilists? Yeah, I mean, they're just a bunch of nihilists, fear-mongering nihilists. They don't believe the climate crisis is over. They believe it's still there. Now, add to that, I do think that there's a higher risk of World War III, of nuclear catastrophe. But, they believe in the species extinction and climate change and plastics are eating your brain and all of that stuff. And so, yes, every day that goes by that we haven't banned plastics, banned fossil fuels, and basically sacrificed our babies for the sake of the insects is a day we're closer to doomsday. That's the way they view it. They're truly evil nihilists. Ryan, is the United States in a constitutional crisis yet? Maybe YBS needs a constitutional crisis clock. You could end each show in front of the clock and more hands towards midnight or away, which each day's news. Yeah. Not my style. But yeah. We're in a constitutional crisis in a sense that I think Congress has completely defaulted on its responsibility constitutionally and allowing the executive branch to do things that far exceeds its constitutional authority. But it's not Congress often doesn't do its job. So it's not unique. It's not special. It's just more. If the Supreme Court rules against Trump and he says to hell with you, that would be a real constitutional crisis. I think we're in deep trouble. I wouldn't call it a constitutional crisis. If the Supreme Court on the tariffs rules for Trump, then I'm not sure what the Constitution is worth anymore at all, if they could misinterpret it to that extent. But no, I don't think we're yet at a constitutional crisis. And this seems to be, while the traditional checks and balances are still not really working that well, the non-traditional checks and balances are. Those are us, the people. We just, the people in Minneapolis just checked the power of the federal government, just checked the power of ICE, and good for them. Good for them. That's a good check and balance. Lone dissenter. I make a living as a content creator, non-ideological niche. My fans are 85% leftists. If my views on Israel, trans, environmentalism, etc. were known, my income would disappear. I avoid expressing views even in real life. Am I a coward? No, I think you have to be realistic about your livelihood. You have to make a living. And if your livelihood requires you to stay quiet wherever you can, you still support the Yaron Brook Show. You still support these ideas being expressed out there in the world. You should support the Ayn Rand Institute, you support me. Yeah, you're doing enough. Your voice, you have to make a living. That needs to be your number one priority. And you're not selling out. It's not like you're voicing the opposite views. That I would never do. But just staying quiet is, I think, the right tactic to do. And often at work, you should stay quiet. And if work encroaches into your private space, then you have to be careful even in your private space. All right. Thank you, guys. Let's see. There were stickers that I did not thank. Yeah, Normative Randroid and Linda. Thank you for the stickers. I appreciate that. Yeah, First Principles we did. All right. Michael says, did you watch the South Park Ice episode? It was hysterical. No, I didn't. I don't watch South Park regularly. I might look for it. It's the perfect thing for South Park to make fun of. So I'm not surprised it's hysterical. I'll look for it. Thanks, Michael. Also, Michael, Ben Bear mentioned that altruism says evil is powerful. Why would that be the case, since altruism itself is evil? Altruism, yeah, but it doesn't consider it evil. Altruism doesn't consider itself evil, right? Altruism considers selfishness as evil. Altruism considers selfishness as evil, but it also views selfishness as it defines it, not as we define it. They consider non-altruistic behavior as evil, But they also recognize that non-altruistic behavior is how stuff gets done in the world, how stuff gets achieved in the world. And therefore, they view it as powerful. So evil is power. Evil is powerful. Right. So, yeah. So remember, they don't view altruism as evil. They view altruism as good. They view everything else as evil. Michael, what makes... by the way, I should just say before people leave, don't forget to like the show before you leave. Press that like button. Doesn't cost you anything. Nada, nothing. But it really helps with the algorithm. So please like the show before you leave. Also, if you're not a subscriber, subscribe to the show. Press that subscribe button. You'll find out when I post videos. You can ignore it then, but subscribers is good. It's good to be a subscriber. And yeah, those are the two things I want to remind you. Of course, keep supporting the show with your stickers and your super chats, and ask anything, any question you have for any amount of money you want. Michael says, what makes Ben Bear say red states would win a civil war against blue states? I don't know. You should have asked him. But I would suggest that it has to do with the fact that they're probably better armed. There are more guns in red states. Maybe they're more people who served in the military in red states. I would think that those would be the reasons. Yeah, more vets. More arms, more military capabilities. It would be a pretty bloody war. Really bloody war. Michael, are there a lot of nihilists in this country, and Trump's success is his ability to reflect that back to them? I mean, that's part of it, but he also encourages. There are a lot of people who flirt with nihilism, and I think that Trump makes it okay, makes it sexy, makes it, he represents them, he speaks to them, and they become more nihilistic because of it. So it's not just a reflection, it's also an inducement, encouragement, a facilitation. Michael. Oops, why did I do that? Michael, is MAGA a Southern racist movement? No, I don't think it's limited to the South. I don't think racism is limited to the South. A lot of the people involved in MAGA and lead MAGA are not from the South. So no, I don't think it is. I think it appeals to the elements of racism that still live in the South, that are still embedded in the South. It appeals to them. And maybe that's where most of its popularity is. But I don't think it's primarily a movement of the South. Michael says 8 versus 1, and they still shot him. These are untrained Proud Boys cosplaying as federal agents. Yes, I think that captures it. Untrained thugs that have been given a badge and given immunity and go police the streets. Michael says, no matter how much reality you throw at some people, they will continue to evade it. Yes, because their whole way of using their consciousness is to not use it. It's to use it to evade. It's to not have to answer the questions, not having to face the facts, not having to face reality. And reality scares them. Reality scares them. Their mind scares them. Reason scares them. Michael says, how would Israel do in an all-out war with China? Oh, I don't know. China has nukes. that, Israel's in a position where one nuke destroys it. China could probably tolerate a few nukes. So Israel can't survive a war with China. China's just too big. It's too big. Too many planes, too many troops, too many people, too big. And China has aircraft carriers that can come to Israel. Israel doesn't have much that can go to China. It has ballistic missiles that can reach China, but not much more than that. And even that, it's stretching their capabilities. So, Israel can't win that war. And it's unlikely they would fight such a war. Now, if China came to Israel to try to destroy Israel without nukes, it would have a really hard time and probably would be defeated because it can only bring so many troops at a time. But China, again, would never do that. But in an all-out war between the two countries, Israel doesn't have a chance. All right. Lincoln says, Americans are extremely poorly traveled as a country overall, with only a small minority having passports, despite out-earning Europe. Why is this? I mean, partially it's because America's so big already. There's so many places you could travel in America. Why go to Europe when you haven't yet seen the Grand Canyon, or you haven't been to Yosemite or Yellowstone or any of the national parks? So, I mean, I find that Americans are very poorly traveled even within America. And a lot of that is because Americans tend to be, I don't know, they think that they're the center of the universe. They have a particularly provincial attitude. Whatever state they're born in, that's the center of the universe. They're not that curious. Again, they used to be much more mobile. People used to live in different places. They're not as mobile today. And a lot of Americans just don't care about the rest of the world. They're very, very self-centered around America and America's importance and America's everything. I don't know how much Europeans travel outside of Europe. I don't know. They travel in Europe, but that's really, really easy. That's like traveling in the United States. I don't know what the stats are. But Americans don't know geography. They don't know much about the world, and they don't know much about history. They have a lousy educational system, and they're not particularly curious about the world and about geography, which is pretty astounding. But I found that to be the case since the first time I came to America in the 1970s as a teenager. I saw more of America as a teenager than anybody else in my class. Free market capital. Why deny illegal immigrants a path to citizenship? Let's say even after paying certain fines and they're fully assimilated, effectively barring them from ever calling themselves Americans. Because I think citizenship is overrated. All I'm doing is saying, you're worried about culture, you're worried about voting, they all vote Democratic or whatever, fine, don't give them citizenship. It's just not that important to me, so why not? Why not, reduce one level of friction with those who oppose by taking the citizenship thing off the table? But generally, I've got this view that to be a citizen, i.e. to vote, you should know something about America. You should know its political system pretty intimately. And since we don't require that in tests, and you're an immigrant, probably haven't learned it in school, okay, then don't vote for the next, for the rest of your life. Big deal. But you get to live in this country, enjoy the rights protection this country provides. Lincoln, women are more likely to go to college while men are getting jobs or further education. Why the switch compared to decades ago? Well, a big part of that is sexist attitudes decades ago about women not being they shouldn't work, they should raise kids and stay at home. and a cultural attitude towards women that they shouldn't go to school. And that cultural attitude shifted, and women suddenly became eager to go to work, and they have. I think the other part of that is there are certain jobs that are for unskilled, for uneducated people, low-skilled jobs that are primarily physical, that are more appropriate for men than they are for women. Although there are jobs also like that for women that are more appropriate for women than men. But women have to make up for the generations, really all of history, when they couldn't get an education or were expected not to get an education, and they are eager to go and expand their education, prove people wrong, and prove to themselves or just show themselves that they are capable, and then get jobs and show that when it comes to reason, they are not second-hand class citizens. I like numbers. Thoughts on Valiant no longer identifying as an objectivist? I don't really understand that. He's a student of objectivism. I don't understand it. I don't get it. I don't get the point. So I have no idea. Enric, how could the midterm election restrain and moderate Trump, and how could Trump respond? Well, I mean, if the Democrats win the House, they will impeach him, and they will impeach Noam, and they will impeach other people within the administration. So that'll just consume time. If they win both the House and the Senate, they can hold up his nominations, his appointments. If Supreme Court justice leaves, Trump would have to compromise with him to get a Supreme Court judge on the court. A lot of things could happen. I mean, the Senate. I mean, almost for certain, Republicans lose the House. The question is, can they lose the Senate as well? Whatever legislative agenda Trump has, like the big beautiful bill, wouldn't have passed, and other things like that. So it's time-consuming, harassing the Trump administration, and diverting its attention, and not passing the bills that he wants. Now, how does he get back? How does he respond? He responds with more executive orders. He responds just the way he's acting right now. Just the way he's acting right now. Maybe even more so. Lincoln, how much of a problem is lower birth rates for the world? On the one hand, it means more freedom for women, but it also means less future minds. Well, it's hard to say what you mean by the world. Does the world have a problem? I mean, there might be a problem in the future. Populations will shrink. Economies will have to adjust. Division of labor and specialization will have to adjust. Growth rates would shrink because there are fewer people and fewer minds and fewer laborers. But growth will still happen. GDP per capita will still grow. So I don't know who's got a problem. Future generations might have to worry about that and deal with it. But it's not clear to me that the shift to birth rates is permanent. As populations get smaller, there might be a reversal. There's some evidence to suggest that when people get richer beyond a certain point of wealth, get significantly richer beyond a certain point, they have more kids. So when they're poor, they have a lot of kids, and then they get fewer and fewer kids as they get richer. And then at some point, it looks like it reverses. What happens when the rest of the world gets richer and richer and richer and richer? Partially because GDP is now being divided into smaller numbers of people. Maybe now they have more kids and you get a reversal of the shrinkage of the world population. I think that trying to determine what's going to happen generations from now, what economic impact things are going to have generations from now, is a fool's thing. The other thing you have to remember is we're going into the era of robots and AI, where fewer people are going to be needed to do a lot of work. And you won't have less minds. What you'll have is maybe fewer people but their minds will be focused on the real problems that human beings can solve, whereas the robots will be doing the mundane jobs. Lincoln says, speaking of tech and freedom, there's a great speech from Milton Friedman in the late 90s predicting a person-to-person internet payment system, sort of like Bitcoin. I'm not surprised. I mean, Friedman was incredibly incredible. He was a good thinker, and he could see things in advance. He could see things in the future. And he was also a great communicator. So his speeches were very good. More by Lincoln. I've recently been approached by people at Heritage to become a summer fellow. Is it worth joining it to try to change, or are they a lost cause? I think they're a lost cause. And certainly you're not going to change it as a fellow. As a summer fellow, it's not going to make any difference. You know, go somewhere else where you might actually learn something and you won't have to deal with these hostile, nasty people. Life is too short. Jamie from Canada. Can you talk a bit about China's economy versus U.S.? My friend thinks communism, capitalism, thinks because CF Moto ATVs from China are reliable and are far cheaper than Yamaha, Japan, or Canada. I mean, the first thing to recognize is China is not communist. There's no communism in China. I realized that the first trip I made to China, to Shanghai, and the billboards were bigger than Times Square, and luxury stores were selling Louis Vuitton and everything else all over Shanghai, and that's not communism. I don't know what it is, but it's not communism. And where they excel is where they allow businesses freedom. They don't excel in state-owned businesses. They excel in the private sector, and they excel where there's real competition, and that's because those markets are free. That's because of the little capitalism that exists in China. You know, a good book on this is a book called How China Became Capitalist. I don't think it became capitalist, but How It Became Capitalist by, God, I forget the author's name. The economist who lived to be 100. He wrote this book when he was 101. It's a Chinese author plus an American author whose name slips my mind right now. But check out How China Became Capitalist. China is not communist. Just because the political party is authoritarian and it's statist, interventionist, but it's not capitalist. It's not communist, and it's not capitalist, somewhere in between. It's a mixed economy. And those areas where China produces goods better than the West are those areas where those companies are being left alone, not centrally planned. There it is. Ian says Ning Wang and Ronald Coase. Ronald Coase is a Nobel Prize economist, winning economist. And it's a really good book, which I recommend to understand the Chinese economy. Did you get 10 Patreon supporters for this month? Yes, I did. We're starting to chip into next month's 10. Jamie from Canada. If there were zero government handouts for immigrants, could there be a wide open border for anyone, anytime, who wanted to come and try to make it in the West? How many people would come? Would it work? Yes. How many people would come? I don't know. Millions. Over time, they wouldn't all come at once because there wouldn't be enough jobs for them all at once. They would have to come in waves, but large waves. And, would it work? Yeah, it would work great. I mean, it's what happened in the 19th century in America. They came in waves, in large waves every year. Large numbers of people came. It wasn't like tens of millions all at once, but significant numbers came every year. And I think the same would happen now. Lincoln, how much of America not having a female president is sexism versus bad candidates with Hillary and Kamala? I think it's mostly bad candidates. I mean, sexism probably played some role, but it's mostly bad candidates. They were both awful. Adu Karet. Is there any hope for the future of the country? Yes, this country has one asset left, the matchless productive ability of its people. This was Ayn Rand, 1974. Yeah, that was 1974. A long time has passed since then. And you have to ask the question, it's 50 years, 52 years. Is that still true? And that's a tough one. It's getting harder and harder. Lincoln, I once saw Gucci ads over the hammer and sickle in Shanghai one time. Lots of irony of communist system while consuming luxury goods and producing luxury goods and having massive inequality and not even pretending to be seeking any kind of equality. The Oceanist, would it be more accurate to call China fascist? Some businesses only exist to benefit the state, everything within the state, nothing against the state. I mean, yeah, I think it's closer to fascism and communism, but I think it's wrong to think there are only two systems of government. It's a statist mixed economy with a heavy, heavy, heavy hand of the state in certain places and a very, very, very light hand of the state in other places. That's what it is. And that's not fascist exactly, and it's not communism at all. All right, guys. Thank you to all the super chatters. Very much appreciated. And I will see you guys tomorrow. Tomorrow's the last show before I start traveling, and then it'll be more difficult to schedule the shows. But I appreciate you all watching. Please like the show before you leave. Please subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Go to patreon.com and support the show. And yeah, have a great rest of your week. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye, everybody.